Hey guys, Lord Nick here bringing you another League of Legends related video, and guess what? It's another video about Marksmen. This one though is going to be about my top 5 Marksmen you should play at low plat and below, my top 5 you shouldn't play at low plat and below. Low plat is P3, P4, high plat is going to be P2, P1, so plat and above will be P2, P1 and above, plat and below will be P3, P4 and below. Pretty simple. Anyhow, starting it all off, we're going to start off with Ezreal. And Ezreal is my number one, not Lucian, even though Lucian is probably the better champion. Reason why, Ezreal is a little bit simpler. Ezreal has low mechanical input. He is all about throwing out Qs to poke your opponent and get gold off of that. You also farm up with them, but if you miss a bit of farm and you're landing Qs and getting sacks of gold, makes up for it. So overall, his input is a lot simpler than most champions. He's a lot more abusable. His late game is really good. His mid game is not bad. His early game is okay. So he also scales well with the good supports at the moment, which are shield and heal supports, which just do very well for making him an even safer champion. His E is super safe, allows you to also do super easy poking. If you land your W on somebody, guess what you can do? You can E towards them, but not into them. So you just got to E close enough that your E locks on to the fact that they have the W on, and it goes. That E's range is relatively high, just an FYI, so if they have a W on them and you E, it automatically targets them. Safe poke, even though you don't have to go through minions, you can keep the minions angled to keep the enemy support away from you. Now that being said, you can also use his E as an escape, and when you get hit by CC, if you were casting E while you're hit by the CC, you go to the other side of the E, which makes it a lot safer. They can't all in you all the time. It's super, super good. So, what about Ezreal's great? His entire kit is safe, his entire kit is strong, he scales really well into the late game. All in all, Ezreal's a great pick for lower elos. Anyhow, next up is Lucian, and Lucian is going to be the only champion on here that, outside of maybe Ezreal, that I think really requires a lot of mechanical input from the player. And that being said, is because he is such a combo-heavy ADC. He's all about throwing out your Qs, your Ws, your Es in quick successions with a lot of threading autos in between, along with using your Bork to slow people if you decide to buy the Bork, which is also a great thing about him is that he has so many different item choices and different build paths that are all very viable. Now he specifically is running press the attack, which makes him very good as he can use that to abuse the laning phase. Now you want to win with him before 35 minutes, but guess what? The games are not really going past 30 minutes very often, and the team that gets ahead in lane generally wins the game. So, that being said, Lucian is a great lane-dominant ADC, thus why I believe he's a very good option. He is also very safe with his dashes. The reason he's slightly below Ezreal is because you sometimes want to go aggressive with the dashing too, and that takes a little bit of time to know when you should and when you shouldn't. His ulti is also kind of weird, can feel clunky at times, but is super useful in his kit, and is a very good execute item. The rest of his abilities are pretty straightforward, pretty simple, but he does require a little bit more raw mechanical skill, but he overall is a very strong champion right now, which is why he should also just be on this list, is just because of his sheer strengths, opposed to the fact that he is a mechanically difficult champion in comparison to some of the others on this list. Next up on this list is actually a really weird toss-up for me in terms of champions you should play or shouldn't play. There's actually two people, and in previous iterations I didn't put them here together, but I'm going to do it in this video, and the person is going to be Tristana, and the other person is going to be Sivir. And the reason that they're both on, Sivir is on the people you shouldn't play, and on the people you should play, is because she offers similar things to Trist. She has very strong wave clear. She has very strong lane pressure. She scales relatively well in the game. And overall, she's a safe champion. The reason Sivir is not going to... She's an honorable mention here, but she's not the actual person in this place, is because Trist has resets. Trist is really good at resetting. She can go aggressive and she can play defensive. Sivir really only has an on switch or an off switch. You don't do both. If you turn your ulti to charge at somebody, you're going to charge at somebody. While you do have it usually for a little while to get away, if they turn that fight when you go all in, you're not getting out as easily as maybe a Trist would. Because if a Trist goes all in, she can usually get back out because she has Buster Shot to knock people away, or if she gets enough autos and procs her E, usually you're going to get a couple autos on the E and you're jumping in and then you're getting the last auto to finish it. If you don't kill them and they have a lot of support coming in, you get to jump away, and if they get too close again, you Buster Shot them away, and guess what? Trist is out. Sivir, on the other hand, you're running in with your ulti. The other team comes in, you spell shield, you might block a spell, but if they have a second CC ability, Sivir might get caught. So I think Sivir's just a little bit of a riskier version of what Tristana really does well. Tristana also takes towers a lot better than Sivir. So that's why Sivir's the honorable mention. She could be on either list. I think she should be avoided as she's not as safe as Trist. But still an honorable mention for one that you could play. Sivir's at the very bottom of my should not play champions for this reason. Next up is going to be Caitlyn. And this is kind of an easy go-to person in terms of Caitlyn, as she's the safest champion in the game in terms of ADCs in most cases. Her traps allow you to zone people, her E allows you to get away and slow people, her Q is a very good long-range poke, her autos are very good long-range poke, and her ulti can be used as poke or great finisher. Overall, there's no real negatives to say about her. Caitlyn, though, also has the massive strength of being able to use multiple different runes, which some of the other ones mentioned really don't. They only just use one rune. Ezreal uses Kleptomancy. Lucian can use Klepto, but nobody does it. You use Press the Attack to get a ton of advantage in lane. Tristana, you use Press the Attack. You occasionally use Fleet Footwork, but that's not really an advantage. That's just a safety net. Caitlyn, you can use Fleet Footwork. You don't really, because you don't need that mobility. The healing is pretty nice, but you don't really need the mobility. So you use Grasp the Undying, which gives you strong damage with your super long range, along with healing. So you get the safety net that is, Fleet Footwork, but you don't need the mobility because you have a longer range, so you should be farther away to begin with. And then you have your net either way and traps to zone off from a certain direction. And just overall, you get a better rune that also gives you the option of Demolish, which allows you to get tower pressure, which is also what makes her pretty good. You could also do the Fleet Footwork, like I said. You could do Press the Attack if you really want to, Lethal Tempo if you really want to. There's a lot of options on Caitlyn, and she's super safe, which just makes her really a shoo-in for this spot. Last one on this spot is a very hard debated one by me, and in other iterations, I for sure had Jinx above Caitlyn, but the more I thought about it, even though Jinx is probably in a stronger spot than Caitlyn, I'm putting her slightly lower because she actually has got Ashe in contention with her. Ashe is going to make it as, again, one of the lower runner-ups on this list, but she's also going to be kind of on the back burner list. She's on the 5 I think you shouldn't play, and the only reason I decided that on Ashe is that Ashe, while immobile like Jinx, is much more reliant on her ulti than Jinx is. Jinx can just turn on the autos and just go, and then if she really needs to, she can switch her autos to being high damage long range and just poke from a distance. And then with her W buff, Jinx has become a lot more viable at using her W in the later parts of the game than she had been in the past. The W used to be kind of a dead ability as the game went on. It is now currently become a much more powerful ability in the late game, and the reason why is it now gets more cooldown reduction based off of your attack speed, which means it resets a lot sooner. Super useful, makes her do a crap ton of damage, and is a much more viable ability, which makes her late game even that more potent, and allows her to potentially get there, because even into the mid game it has a much lower cooldown, and it was already a very strong ability. It's now a better ability and more usable, which just, when you have more things usable in your kit, and you're already kind of good, you become pretty damn good. So Jinx just edges it out, just because her buff, opposed to the Hawkshot buff, I think is more viable and more usable. So we're going to move to the 5 you shouldn't play. I've already mentioned 2 of them now, which is Sivir and Ashe. Here's a bit more on Sivir. Sivir has a lot of great things in her kit. She's still very viable. You could still get away with playing her. The reason I say you don't want to play her is simply due to the fact that she has a very one-dimensional kit, which is very much what Caitlyn has, which is a downside to Caitlyn, but Sivir's is just slightly not as safe as Caitlyn. She has a lot of really abusable stuff. She's really freaking powerful. But in low elos, she's really good at booning your teammates. And unfortunately, when you give that big of a mobility boon on your teammates, there's a couple things that usually go wrong with that. And the biggest thing is overcommitting and over-diving. And that is a big problem, and she encourages that playstyle. So in the higher elos, I think she definitely is a shoo-in for a very safe one. And even in the lower elos, if you're using it wisely, she's very, very good. But for just raw output and strength, I don't think she makes the cut for ones that you should play. Now, there's a lot of other ones I'm not mentioning on this list, like Draven, Kog'Maw, Kai'Sa, Xayah. There's ones I'm not telling you to play. I'm not telling you to play MF because I also kind of consider MF more of a mage nowadays than a marksman, though she does do a lot of auto stuff. Most of her builds are lethality, and it's all about using your Q and your ulti, so she's really a good pick. She doesn't make it down these lists just because I feel like she fills more into the category of kind of a bot lane mage, really. She fits more into that meta, more so than the most other ADC meta. Um, I'm not mentioning Quinn or Teemo, who are on this on all the marksmen shown here, because Teemo, to be honest, he's a top laner. There should be no reason I should be mentioning him. Quinn, she's a top laner or jungler. There's no reason I should be mentioning her bot. I don't mention Kog'Maw or Draven. Draven, obviously, he's a lot of mechanics. He's very, very good right now, but he's also very bad right now. But he's so polarizing that I just can't really place him right now. Kai'Sa, same kind of thing. She's very polarizing. In the right hand, she's an ungodly monster, but in the wrong hand, she's ungodly bad. But her win rate, along with Zaya's, is too polarizing. Now, Ashe makes the list of people you shouldn't play because she's super simplistic, which makes her really easy to pick up, but she's super polarizing, even more so than the other ones, aforementioned ones here, due to the fact that if you miss her ulti, there's a lot to be said about that. You miss an ulti and you could be dead. You have a lot of great kite potential, but you're really, really slow. So anybody with a ton of gap closers, which guess what? The meta is a ton of gap closers, makes her a lot worse. She's really good when it's about people that are slow moving or very much about ranged champions who don't have a lot of gap closing. She's great in those metas, or even just melee champions with no gap closing. She is phenomenal in that. But it's not a tank meta, so Ashe is still really, really good in the higher elos because they can abuse it a lot better, and the meta is a lot different there. But in lower elos, you're going to see a lot of flipping Rivens coming at you, and some Canes here or there, and maybe a couple of other individuals with a ton of mobility that you just don't want to see coming at your face. Thus, I don't really put Ashe there, as she is very safe, but she has a lot of room for error. Vayne is on this list also because she's just super mechanical. Vayne is really, really powerful right now, but she's super mechanical, and I avoid a lot of mechanical champions in low elo. You want to use things that are really simple, really easy, really abusable. Thus, avoid Vayne at the moment. Once you become more mechanically sound, and you trust me, you will know when you are more mechanically sound. If you were telling your friends you were only in silver because the rest of the people in silver suck, you are not quite mechanically sound yet. You become more mechanically sound when you're focusing more on your own play. I still have issues with this, thus I'm really just a high elo silver, but you will focus more on easy to climb champions. Find ways to abuse the meta. Vayne, while really good in this meta, is also very polarizing, as she is much more about your mechanics and your ability to abuse the supports right now, which you can't always rely on your supports. So overall, I just say kind of avoid Vayne. There's too much room for error, and she's too risk reward based. Next on the list of do not play this champion, we have Twitch. Twitch is ungodly good in the high elos. The reason I'm telling you to avoid him now is due to the fact that Twitch is very, very awkward to play. He plays much more like an assassin opposed to an ADC. He has a lot of ADC mechanics, but he's all about popping out of stealth in very optimum situations, positioning yourself very well. Do not start the fight with Twitch. You usually start the fight with somebody else. Twitch pops up and starts blowing them up after they've used a lot of their CC abilities and engage, which doesn't sound very difficult, but it can be kind of hard to pull off sometimes. And thus, while he is very good and he has a very high win rate, he doesn't have a high play rate. And the reason why is he takes way too much skill to actually become very good at him. Thus, I'm telling you right now, please just avoid Twitch in the low elos. Once you get higher up, maybe if you've been playing a lot of normals games, you can pick up Twitch and Vayne a lot. Maybe even Kalista, but avoid them for now in the lower elos. Kalista would make this list right now, but I don't know how she's going to change too much with the next patch. A lot of these champions have a potential to move a lot with the next patch. Jhin specifically, though, makes the list because he has a lot of potential to move up with the next patch, but right now he's just in a very, very, very bad spot for him. So the reason I say this is that a lot of Jhin players are struggling to get by with Jhin, and even in the higher elos, he's becoming harder, and that's because the meta, while very volatile for ADCs in general, is very volatile for immobile ones like Jhin and Ashe. Ashe has a lot of kite potential in her kit by slowing people down, has an ulti that can stun people while she gets to plink, 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 and she scales well with the supports. Thus why she's much closer to being a viable pick right now. Jhin, on the other hand, has 4 autos, which means getting attack speed buffs doesn't necessarily do a great deal for him. Now, it does mean that he does more damage, because it scales damage with his passive, but it's not as amazingly abusable as it is for other ADCs right now. While really good with Janna, you don't see a lot of Jannas in low elo, and when you do, they're generally not going to be one of the best ones. In low elos, you see a lot more tanks or burst-based mages, and this is based off of friends that I played with who really love to abuse Zyra, and they like to hard carry the lane, which isn't necessarily bad when Jin's a very good lane meta-based individual. But junglers love to gank immobile individuals, so if you have an immobile burst mage along with Jhin, that's just 2 really juicy targets for the jungler. So if you are mechanically a god at Jhin, feel free to pick him up. But even I, a person who has a ridiculous amount of time on Jhin, with 522,337 points on Jhin, don't recommend you playing him, as he is just in a very awkward meta for him. He himself is not bad, but the meta is so against him, it is not friendly to him right now, and it's probably very toxic for you to do so. Now, like I said, I didn't mention a lot of other champions, and there's many of them that could have been on either side of this list, and some of the ones that are on the don't play side have a lot of positives to them. And with this, take everything with a grain of salt. You could prove me 100% wrong and be able to blow people away with Jhin, or blow people away with people that are on this negative list. But I'm only saying avoid some of these because they take a lot more mechanical outplay. And guess what? The best way to get out of silver, gold, bronze, I bet even iron now, is just by abusing things that are overpowered. That's why I put up there a lot of people who are overpowered right now. I didn't put Twitch because he's very powerful, but he requires a lot of mechanical play. Lucian requires a decent amount of mechanical play, but it's just so overpowered that go for it, do it, use him, kill. I mean, Ezreal's so good right now. He's so safe, gets a lot of gold, he's super useful. It's the ones that I've mentioned on the list of don't play, while all of them are still relatively viable, they're not as viable as some of the other ones. And or they just take too much skill for some people to play. And I'm not saying that people below Plat are bad. Trust me, Plats are bad enough as they are. Diamonds are bad enough as they are. But these champions take so many hours to become really, really good at. And the reason streamers are really, really good at them, and it looks like streamers can pick them up so fast, is because streamers are playing 13 to 15 hour days. If you were not playing 13 to 15 hours every freaking day, please avoid these high mechanical champions and use the ones that you can abuse a lot easier. So guys, thank you very much for watching this video. If you made it to the end, I appreciate it a lot. You can follow my Twitch, that's going to be down below. You can join my Discord, also going to be down below. I'm going to put my Twitter and my Facebook down there as well, just for whatever reason. And if you guys really liked it, leave a comment, tell me what I should do in the next video, or give it a like or subscribe. All of these things would be appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you all have yourself a wonderful, wonderful day.